All right, let's break this down. On one hand, you've got artificial intelligence, probably the most powerful tool humanity has ever dreamed up. And on the other, the climate crisis. Just the most complex challenge we've ever had to face. Well, right now, these two massive forces are colliding, and that collision is creating a paradox that's really going to define our future. So what's it going to be? Is AI our last best hope, or is it a brand new, hidden catastrophe in the making?
And look, this isn't just some far-off hypothetical idea. We're talking about market intelligence reports that are pinpointing right now as a major turning point. The thing is, the AI revolution and the climate crisis, they're not separate stories anymore. They're basically one and the same story now, feeding into each other in this powerful, kind of unpredictable feedback loop.
Okay, so let's start with the good news, right? The incredible promise. How exactly could AI actually be the hero in our climate story? Because honestly, the potential here is, well, it's staggering. Let's just start with a number for the near future. Check this out. The Capgemini Research Institute says AI could help us slash global greenhouse gas emissions by 16%. And get this, that's in just the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, that is a massive impact, and it's incredibly fast.
And, if we look just a little further down the road, the numbers get even crazier. Research from a group called Systemique suggests AI could cut emissions by a whopping 5.4 billion tons of CO2 equivalent every single year by 2035. To really put that into perspective, a cut that big, year after year, that's a total game changer in the race to meet our global climate goals.
So the big question is, how? How does it actually do all that? Well, it's not some single magic bullet. AI is working across 5 really key areas. We're talking about everything from optimizing super complex things like our energy grids and supply chains to supercharging the discovery of new materials, think stuff for carbon capture. It even helps us shape better policies and, get more resilient to the climate impacts we can't avoid anymore.
And this is not just theory, okay? We are seeing real, tangible, game-changing breakthroughs happening as we speak. Let's take a look at a fantastic example. It's called the Deep Learning Earth System Model, or DELIUM for short.
This just shows you the incredible leap we're taking. Seriously, think about this. A climate simulation that used to take a giant supercomputer 90 days to run. Well, this AI model can now do it on a single processor in just 12 hours. That kind of speed completely changes the game. It makes climate science faster, cheaper, and way more accessible for researchers all over the world. It is a true paradigm shift.
Okay, but every revolution has its cost, right? For all of its incredible promise, this AI boom is being built on a foundation that just consumes an absolutely astonishing amount of resources. And that, my friends, brings us to the dark side of this paradox. So really, what is the hidden price we're paying for all this incredible computational power? Well, the numbers are just as mind-boggling as the potential benefits we just talked about, but frankly, in a much more alarming way.
Let's just take a second to let these figures sink in. First, AI's energy demand, it's on track to increase tenfold by 2026. 10 times. In the US alone, data centers could be sucking up 6% of the entire country's electricity by then. And then there's the water footprint. We're talking up to 6.6 billion cubic meters a year just to keep the servers cool. To put that in perspective, that is more water than the entire country of Denmark uses in a year. It's staggering. Now, you'd think the big tech companies would have this all under control, right? But here's the catch. There's a really critical issue in how they're reporting their emissions. It's kind of like a carbon loophole that's hiding the true reality of their massive, growing footprint. So it all boils down to 2 different ways of counting. You've got market-based accounting, which lets companies buy renewable energy credits to make their numbers look good on paper. But then you have location-based accounting, which measures the actual carbon intensity of the local power grid their data centers are physically plugged into. You see the difference? One is basically an accounting trick. The other is the physical reality. And this is what happens when you compare the two. Just look at this reality gap. Microsoft's numbers based on the market approach show their emissions going down, but their actual location-based emissions, they've soared by 130%. Google's have jumped 92%. So here's the bottom line. While the reports might look pretty good on paper, the physical emissions getting pumped into our atmosphere to power this AI boom are, in reality, skyrocketing. So, this growing paradox is pretty much forcing governments all over the world to do something. But, and this is the interesting part, They are not all moving in the same direction. Not at all. We're actually seeing this really clear, kind of fascinating global policy divide start to open up.
So, in one corner, you've got the United States. They're going for what you could call permissionless innovation. The goal there is pretty simple: speed, deregulation, and keeping that competitive edge, no matter the cost. And then, in the other corner, you have the European Union. They're taking a completely different tack: regulated innovation. They're using public money and clear rules to guide this new tech towards their strategic climate goals. And then, of course, there's a third major player in the game: China. They're carving out their own path entirely with a state-led model. They're developing these massive AI systems for public good applications and then using that tech as a tool for international cooperation. So what you have are three global powers with three very, very different visions for the future. So where does all this leave us? Well, we're at a critical crossroads. No exaggeration. The path we choose right now is going to determine whether AI's legacy is climate salvation or just more environmental ruin. The good news? A pathway to a more sustainable kind of intelligence is starting to emerge. We're really facing a choice between two totally different philosophies. You've got what we could call maximum AI. That's the race for the biggest, most powerful models at all costs, where the environmental impact is, just an afterthought. And the alternative is sustainable AI, where things like efficiency and fairness are baked right in from the very start. And look, sustainable AI isn't just some fluffy, nice-to-have idea. It is a very practical strategy. A recent UNESCO report laid out what they call a smarter, smaller, stronger approach. Turns out just using smaller, more task-specific models can cut energy use by up to 90%. Even simple stuff like writing shorter, more concise prompts can save over 50% in energy. So efficiency is totally possible.
Another really key solution that's emerging is building something called a climate trust stack. It sounds complicated, but it's basically a three-layer system. Step 1, you have IoT devices out in the real world sensing what's happening. Step 2, AI comes in and verifies that a climate-positive action actually happened. And then step 3, a blockchain records it all as a transparent, unchangeable digital asset, kind of like a carbon credit. This whole thing could be a huge weapon against greenwashing and finally bring some real trust to carbon markets. And so here we are, right back where we started. The power of AI, it's undeniable. That's not in question anymore. The only question that's left for us to answer: are we going to be smart enough to build a truly sustainable intelligence? Or is our race for more and more computational power just going to create a brand new crisis while we're still trying to solve the last one? At the end of the day, the choice is ours.